So, hi everyone. I am going to share with you my 5 flow development rule sets that had model tested lessons from building during the Might the Flow Way with You hackathon. I first started with a simple elemental straight game that was a rock, paper, scissors with randomness, and then goes a little ambitious with Evolving Creatures NFT. And that's where by coding plus rule experience forge the set of rules. The first rule I call it the Cadence NFT standards. So, what's the problem? Because what that was made me write this rule. I was drawing in interface errors, missing metadata, wrong storage paths. So, my solution was write these Cadence NFT standard rules and had the exact pattern that worked for me. Core interface conformance that know how to get the proper get IDs and board of NFT implementations. They cannot use standard paths from where the NFT are going to be saved, you know. And here, yes. Also, when you are going to create an NFT, you can use a modular design, where you can have separate trade models instead of 1,000 lines or file of this NFT. That does not only help you to make the code more maintainable and understandable, that can make you can update your NFT. You know, where in Cadence that you when deploy a contract and you have in your NFT some fields, and also you later know, I want to know that my NFT contract have new field. You can do that so easily. If you had a contract and now you have 1,000 mint NFT in the user wallets, and though you want to make a new field indeed, you need to redeploy the contract, send the NFT to the correct user, and so on. What happens is you can make a modular design of this. You can add modules with more fields, with new logic for your NFT that is going to help you in games. So in my case, NFT standard, I now told the ad agent that when you are going to make an NFT and this is complex, you don't need to make a big file of this. You can use trade models pattern for this. And this tell the ad agent how to use this trade model pattern for me. It's a standardized way to add new capabilities to the NFTs. When in my evolving creature NFT contract, when I need it, when I made the evolving model, when I made the genes, sorry, and later when I did, what happened if I want make creature can reproduce and had kids? When I just write a new contract here, just write a new contract, the reproduction model, and just add this to the main NFT. So these roles know the agent how to use they know how to access the NFT, how to make this correct, how to use metadata integration, and you can say why I need this is I can add the cadence documentation and add the flow documentation directly in my context of my agent. Well, you know that documentation are made it to mm, talk you or teach you how to use this, but where you are making some real problems, you need to be some specific in these errors. And remember that The ad agents are not perfect; they are hallucinating. So um, the more strict you are on or what you need, they made better. Later, I was facing too many problems with cadence syntax. With cadence syntax, I was 2 a.m. syntax error at killing my momentum and no coding new solutions. So my cadence syntax patterns are more than a rules. I can call this a museum of my mistakes when the with the agent and when by coding. I here define how you can use in Cadence the earlet and know the wordlet because the agent are repeating wordlet instead of the correct that iflet here. I had to tell the continuous in the chat, do not use Quarlet because Cadence don't support, and here insists in make. So when I have these now rules, the agent never more commit this error. Another error that he are not good too good and make the reference, the owner reference, like this. Yes, they mark the authorization. They are not too sure how to make the access control very good because they always keep the creature stats private and they cannot use view functions, you know, because the agent really doesn't know what do you want to preserve in your NFT private to the other NFT, to other address, to the no owners. You have to tell this to take this more carefully because he can make all private and he can make all public. So you have to teach here him or her how can you make this better. Another typical problem was the authorization granularity. Because here commonly don't grab the necessary compatibilities. Uh, or they sometimes give the full compatibilities, sometimes give none, and note where this the agent know how correctly add this authorization more efficiently. Another error that I was getting in cadence syntax patterns. I think that all of us have faced this in a moment was computation limit, the 1000 computation limit. So, no, the agents can this if you are using too much. I would say it's here or is another. So I think there is another rule. Then we can find here, right here. This. Let's put this because there's a common cadence error because the mm, the agent does so easily know that he can use two complex operation loops like a string, like are using this string split. They use in a loop where the creatures were evolving to make some logs and reaching the computation limit. Also, here doing too many parse the data, and now the agent can. I am only going to make one parse out of the loop and make the parsed data into the loop. So that I think there are some easy things that we humans know, but the agent doesn't know in the first try. So, so the real impact for this in my project that's because my evolution loop was processing 100 creatures and hitting computation limits, and these patterns now fix it instantly. You can tell with the rules to make the same contract that I brought, and they are not going to commit these mistakes again. That is the important thing. Uh, there are so many errors for the agent that doesn't know how to make a flow workflow correctly, because the agent are going to try to use emulator, and in other moment mainnet. So you can teach him that for a deployment they can go to use the emulator, they can go later use the testnet, they can later use the mainnet. So this is really important for an agent. Did you know that Cursor last version had background agents? So if you make this correctly, you can give here a task and go away, come, and with these rules, I absolutely tell you that you are not going to find. Mm, I cannot say that you are not going to find errors with the agent, but I think you can find more little errors. Another thing important that I was to take the agent is how to uh, debut correctly, you know, because they really doesn't are good in debugging in Cadence. They, they tell you need to see the transaction status, what the transaction output, see the event logs if they are disponible, and try to see what happened with account storage. So I did say you can with this you can miss incremental deploys. You use more frequently testnet and know the mainnet. The don't only focus in one part of the error. Use the full error. Uh, some mistakes that are this trying to try when even when an error there. I'm going to make a test case. I go to make a test case, and he not only make the test case from the transaction or the part of the code that already the error, so they can try a bigger test case. Now I tell him use a smallest test case, simple arguments, fewer steps, minimal cadence code, so he more easily isolates the problematic section. Another error that I hear making are deployment verification. They are not catching silent failures like your register models. No. So now he know how to add the core models and use in the deployment. Another error, common error that you are not use good the FSL configuration. So I tell you, rigorously test front-end FSL interaction, always verify deployments after subset transaction, etc. So what was my problem that make me wrote this set of rules? I was my see that my creators were reproducing on testnet. So the systematic debugging that I teach him now can easily identify the missing modules registration in 10 minutes, not hours like make me through this. Another important thing in Cadence that the agent don't make too good is a correctly flow configuration, a correct configuration of the flow.json. Yes, you know that he doesn't try to update this correctly and not use the correct address that he fin deploy. They're not go too good to use how to fin they put the cadence contract. So I say to tell him that these folders are relatively don't where are the flow JSON uh, uh, in the file systems, for example. Um, they doesn't know that the contracts must be in both contracts and deployment sections. The contract aliasing map contract names of deployed address per network, for example. They are not currently working with multi-network consistent when mainnet, testnet, emulator. No, they are with this example he can do it good. The deployment commands, he constantly don't use the correct commands. So I think they are trying to use the older CLI, don't use the correct flags, etc. And sometimes don't put here the correct address, he'll put a placeholder. But no, I tell him when you deploy, here is the address, you need to put it here, you need to make a key for the emulator account or testnet account. Yeah. And finally, I can have my personal preference, my user preference. You know, I tell him how I need to talk with me. Well, I talk Spanish more fluently for that English. I think you might note this right now. So I tell him, evenly, if I talk to you in English or in Spanish, respond me ever in Spanish for I think to read this more fast. So you can teach your agent how to respond to you every time. I can tell you this always to talk with me here. My development philosophy are his. You know, I always try to use the documentation like Flow Cadence, for example, is there available, and you can find in the Flow developer docs. You can find where you can how you can add these docs to the course or the Flow documentation and the Cadence documentation. I always prevented the starter compliance. You know, I prefer stable sheet, flow cadence patterns, and easily best practice over the custom solutions. You know, because he can try that his approach are better, but not use the documentation. With this, when you ask him a question, he are not going to use the documentation. This, I think, this is very important. Iterative approach. Yes, but how you noted that when you tell the agent, help me with this, here going to try to fix no one errors, 15 errors, what hundred of errors, and this eventually broke your code. Another thing important when he make uh, a fix in the cadence contract, he need to see the transactions. He need to see the front end. He need to see the back end. He need to see the FSL configurations. Everything, you know. Um, Another thing that's important for me is how I like to work in Cadence. So the first step for the agent is to see to ensure is there a flow JSON configurations with the P keys, with the accounts that with the contract that you want to use in your emulator. And note here he must use emulator first and later the testnet. It's more easy that way because in your emulator console you can see your logs and it's more easily debugger if you use first the emulator. And even if you have an MCP server connected to the output of the emulator, your code are going to be fantastically and easy to debug. Uh, I here is important because if you don't use this, he are going to use his point of vision and not yours in the UX of your apps. And I think that humans know better how the UX are better for humans than the EA. So So instead of add more authorization to my end part that help me find the real issue where in collaboration with him. And you can, yeah, for finalize this, You can tell me why these rules matter. I can just no make a new project, add the flow documentation, the cadence documentation. Well, you can do that, but you are going to find again with all these errors that I are talking to you. And if you use this error, and if you use these rules, and you make that more bigger, we can make a collaborative work that these errors are not going to repeat. So we hold rules, we are going to repeat mistakes. If you may, I'm going to make a new project later, I don't know, 2 months, maybe you forgot about these errors. If you don't have this, you are going to repeat the mistakes. Are you going to iterate again? Are you going to make the same corrections? And debugging becomes an archaeology. So you are going to find yourself fighting with the platform instead of leveraging it. So these rules aren't theory. They are distilled experience. You know, each mistakes became a rule. Each rule prevents future mistakes. So think about it. To add your own rules. Finally, by coding, I think by coding isn't about the replacing the expertise of a developer. It amplifies much bigger. During this hackathon, the yeah, Cole tell me what to build. He helped me to build faster and more correctly, but it doesn't what his idea, it was mine. So the real magic, I think the real magic when we are by coding something occurs in debugging, you know. In my case, characters were not initialization traits, my reproduction system were failing, my model dependencies are terrible. So I make with my partner these rules, and now I doesn't have to face these problems anymore. So each challenge that I find reinforce my rules. So I encourage all of you to develop your own rule sets. Sure, I am going to share with you mine, and you can start with mine as your inspirations, but make them yours. Every project teaches something new. Every prevented mistakes, it's time gained for build and innovation. The future is collaborative. Human creativity plus eye precisions plus battle tested principles make rules. So these rules are in the link below. You can find in this post. And these are not just static. I think this not to be static. So this I encourage you that like my evolving creatures, these rules are a living creature, that are a living documentation that I'm going to evolve not only with my experience, but I'm going to evolve with your experience and your errors. So, my friends, welcome to the vibe. Goodbye.